At 17, my father threw me out with $12 and a trash bag. Now he wants to live in my house. I still hear the words that ended my childhood. You can make it on your own, can't you? That night, I learned love could sound like exile. Dad's name was Robert. He believed strength meant silence, that emotion was weakness. My mom, Linda, followed his rules like they were commandments. And then there was Jake, my older brother, their miracle child. The golden one. I was just the spare. The backup plan they forgot to care about. It all came down to $500 missing from Dad's office safe. Jake had taken it to impress his friends, but when the truth got too heavy, he dumped it on me. I thought Dad would see through him. He didn't. His face turned red, and he shouted words I can still feel in my bones. Mom just stood there, arms folded, eyes wet but empty. "Pack your things," Dad said. I laughed, a brittle, shaking sound. "You can't be serious." He grabbed a black trash bag from the pantry and dropped it at my feet. "Take it," he said. "You want to be an adult? Go act like one." That was it. 17. No car, no savings, no home, just a trash bag full of clothes and $12 in my wallet. When the door closed behind me, I stood under the yellow porch light, staring at the house I'd called home for 17 years. No one came after me. Not Mom. Not Jake. No one. I slept behind a grocery store that night. The pavement was cold, and I used my hoodie as a pillow. I cried until I couldn't anymore, until my body just gave up and slept. When I woke, delivery trucks were rumbling past. Life went on without me. The first break I caught was at a small discount store downtown. The manager, Denise, hired me to clean and stock shelves. She noticed I had nowhere to go and quietly let me sleep in the back storage room. I made a little nest between boxes of detergent and plastic hangers, and every morning before anyone arrived, I'd brush my hair, wash up in the sink, and pretend I had a life. Days blurred together, working, saving, studying. I found free online design courses at the library and learned everything I could about color, branding, and digital art. Creating things made me feel like I still mattered. Some nights, I'd walk past families laughing over dinner through restaurant windows and feel something ache so deep I could barely breathe. But I kept moving one paycheck at a time. Because if I stopped, I'd drown. By 20, I rented a studio apartment the size of a shoebox. The walls were cracked, the faucet leaked, but it was mine. No one could throw me out of it. I worked double shifts, freelance doing flyers for local businesses, anything to earn another dollar. At 23, I landed an internship at a design firm owned by a woman named Rachel. She saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. "You're better than you think," she told me once. "Don't let where you came from decide where you're going." I carried those words like armor. When she offered me a full-time job, I said yes without hesitation. I learned everything I could: branding strategy, client communication, leadership. And when the firm downsized a few years later, I took the leap and started my own small studio. It was just me and a used laptop at first. I worked out of a rented co-working space with flickering lights and weak coffee. But clients came. Slowly at first, then more steadily. I specialized in helping small businesses look big. At 29, my company was featured in a local magazine. My face ended up on a billboard downtown. "Meet Harper Lane, one of the city's young entrepreneurs to watch." That billboard changed everything. It made me visible. To clients, to investors, and to the family that had erased me. The first sign came as an email with the subject line, "So proud of you." I nearly deleted it, assuming it was spam. But the sender stopped me cold. "Mom, Linda Jacobs." I opened it with shaking hands. "We saw your photo downtown. Your father and I are thrilled for you. Jake and his wife are going through a rough time right now. Maybe you could help them out? They're expecting a baby." 7 years of silence, and that was her opener. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just another request dressed up as affection. I didn't reply. But ignoring them didn't make them disappear. 3 days later, my assistant buzzed my office intercom. "There's a woman here. She says she's your mother." My blood ran cold. When I stepped into the lobby, there they were, Mom, holding her purse tight, and Jake, standing behind her with a strained smile. His wife, Emily, looked tired, one hand resting on her belly. "Harper," Mom said brightly, as if we'd just seen each other last week. "You look amazing, honey." The word honey hit like poison. I wanted to scream, but instead I stayed quiet. They told me their story, how Jake lost his job, how their landlord kicked them out, how Dad's health was failing. Then came the ask, could they stay with me just until they got back on their feet? I listened. I didn't interrupt. I watched their faces, the same faces that once turned away as I begged for mercy. When they finished, I said softly, you kicked me out with $12 and a trash bag. Mom's expression tightened. We did what we thought was best. No, I said. You did what was easiest. Jake sighed. Come on, Harp. Let it go. You've got money now. You're not still mad, are you? Mad? The word didn't even begin to cover it. Funny, I said, my voice steady. You only remember I exist when you need something. Mom looked hurt, like I was the cruel one. You can't turn your family away. I met her eyes. You already did. They left without another word. I stood there in the silence of my own office, shaking, but it wasn't fear anymore. It was power. That night, I wrote an email. Not to them, to everyone else. Every aunt, uncle, cousin who'd heard their side of the story. I told the truth. How Robert Jacobs handed his 17-year-old daughter a trash bag and $12. How Linda said nothing. How Jake blamed me to save himself. How I lived behind a store, worked until my hands bled, and built a life from scratch. I hit send. By sunrise, my inbox was full. Shock. Sympathy. Rage. My relatives had believed I was the runaway rebel, the ungrateful child. Now they knew better. Within a week, my parents' spotless reputation started to crumble. My father's old friends stopped calling. My mother's social group turned on her. Jake's wife packed up and left him after finding out the truth. For the first time, I didn't feel powerless. The story that once destroyed me was finally mine to tell. A month later, a letter came in the mail. My father's handwriting, sharp, angry. You've made your point. Family is family, no matter what. One day, you'll regret this bitterness. I read it once. Then I tore it into tiny pieces and threw it away. A few weeks after that, I closed on my dream home, a modern 3-bedroom with glass walls overlooking the city skyline. Paid in full. No mortgage. No debt. The headline in the local paper read, From Homeless Teen to Homeowner, Harper Lane Rewrites Her Story. That same afternoon, I got one final text from my mother. A photo of the article, followed by 4 words, We're proud of you. I stared at it for a long time. Pride costs nothing when it's convenient. I typed back, you taught me how to survive. I just wish it hadn't been this way. Then I blocked every number that connected me to my past. Months rolled by. My business thrived. I opened a second office, hired a full team, traveled for work. People sometimes asked about my family, and I'd smile politely. We don't talk much, I'd say. They never needed the full story. But sometimes, on quiet nights, I drive past that grocery store where I once slept. I park across the street and sit there, watching the flickering neon sign. I remember the girl curled up behind the dumpsters, clutching a trash bag like it could protect her. I want to tell her, hold on. One day, you'll build something so big, they'll have to see you. That girl thought she was abandoned. But really, she was being released. They wanted to move into my $750,000 home. But what they really wanted was access to my peace, and that's something they'll never touch. Everything I have came from what they took away. Every design I make, every decision I own, it's built on the silence they left me in. I used to think forgiveness was the final step to healing. But I learned something better. Peace doesn't always come from forgiving. Sometimes it comes from closing the door and never looking back. When I wake up now, sunlight spilling through glass walls, I pour my coffee and let the quiet fill the room. That quiet used to mean loneliness. Now it means freedom. Sometimes I imagine Robert seeing my company logo downtown or hearing someone mention my name. I wonder if he still tells people I ran away. Maybe he does. Maybe it helps him sleep. But the truth is, I didn't run. I was pushed. And I landed on my feet. If they ever show up again, I already know what I'll say. I'll open the door just wide enough for them to see the life I built, the calm they can't claim, and I'll smile. Thank you, I'll say, for teaching me exactly what I never want to be. Because if they hadn't thrown me out with $12 and a trash bag, I might still be waiting for their approval. Now, I don't need it. Months passed, and life continued to hum around me, but I carried a quiet pride in every routine. Mornings with coffee on the balcony, evenings filled with sketches and client calls, weekends spent visiting the local park I used to avoid as a kid, everything felt like reclaiming what was once stolen. I even started mentoring younger designers online, guiding them through the mistakes I'd made, the resilience I'd learned, and the strength that comes from building your own world from nothing. Sometimes, when I walked past families, laughing in restaurants or playing in the park, I didn't feel the old ache of longing. Instead, I felt a soft satisfaction, a calm certainty that I could create my own family, my own community, out of respect, trust, and love, not obligation. Those who had turned their backs on me would never understand that power. One chilly autumn evening, I drove past the old grocery store where I'd slept at 17. The neon sign flickered above the entrance, just like it had that night. I parked across the street, sitting in the car, staring at that same spot, imagining the little girl curled up on the cold pavement, clutching a trash bag as if it could hold her whole life together. I whispered to her, "You made it. Look at what you built." And I thought about my parents, Robert, Linda, and even Jake. I no longer felt the rage I once carried. It had been replaced with a quiet justice. They hadn't changed. They never would. But that didn't matter anymore. I had taken back the life they tried to steal, and in that, I was free. I realized something crucial. Revenge isn't about destruction. It's about triumph. It's about showing up for yourself when no one else does. It's about setting boundaries, holding your dignity, and building a life that no one can touch. Sometimes, I imagine my father seeing my name in a magazine, Jake watching a client showcase my work, Mom hearing the praise that belongs to me. They'll never get to live in my house, share my mornings, or take pride in my struggles. They only witness the results. That's their punishment, and it's absolute. I finally understand. I wasn't just surviving. I was reclaiming my story. The girl with $12 and a trash bag didn't just make it. She thrived. She conquered. And every day, she wakes up in a home that she built entirely on her own terms, proof that the past can't define the future. They didn't throw me away. They set me free. And freedom tastes sweeter than any revenge I could ever imagine.